What happens when the greatest two-way player in baseball history puts down the bat, steps back onto the mound, and throws a 160 km/h fastball that leaves four of the most experienced catchers in the major leagues speechless? The answer isn't in the stats. It isn't in the highlight reels. It's in the private words that slipped out in the dugout tunnel, behind closed doors, away from the cameras, words that, when they finally reached the American media, moved Shohei Ohtani himself to tears. When Shohei Ohtani signed his historic contract with the Los Angeles Dodgers, the baseball world had one burning question: when does he pitch again? After undergoing Tommy John surgery in September 2023, Ohtani had committed to the 2024 season as a designated hitter only. No pitching. No two-way. Just hitting. And he delivered: 54 home runs, a World Series ring, and unanimous NL MVP honors. By any measure, it was a transcendent year. But for Ohtani, hitting alone was never the destination. It was a pit stop. Those who watched him closely during the 2024 season noticed something. In the bullpen, between at-bats, during warm-up routines, there was always a baseball in his hand. Not for show. Not for habit. He was feeling it. Studying it. Communicating with it the way only he knows how. The plan was always 2025. The year he would come back, not just as a hitter, but as the full version of himself. And when that moment finally came, the baseball world was not ready for what it witnessed. Spring Training, 2025. Camelback Ranch, Arizona. The Dodgers pitching staff was going through their usual bullpen sessions. Routine. Methodical. Professional. Then Ohtani walked to the mound, and everything stopped feeling routine. The first fastball registered at 157 km/h. The second hit 158. By the fifth pitch, the radar gun read 160 km/h, matching the elite velocity he touched before surgery. Not gradually working up to it. Not over weeks. Right there, in the first live session, as if the arm had simply been waiting patiently for permission to be itself again. The four catchers who received his pitches during that spring period, Blake Snell's battery partner, Will Smith, Austin Barnes, and the staff's rotating receivers, each had the same reaction in the immediate aftermath. And each chose different words. But all of them meant the same thing. Will Smith is not a man easily impressed. He has caught Clayton Kershaw in his prime. He has framed pitches from some of the nastiest arms in the National League. His hands have felt the pop of generations of fastballs. So when Smith crouched behind the plate for Ohtani's first live pitching session of spring training, he came in professionally neutral. Expecting good. Ready for very good. What he was not ready for was this. The fastball hit his glove with a sound that Smith later told American media he hadn't heard in years. Not just loud, dense. A sound that travels up through the wrist and into the shoulder. The kind of pop that tells a catcher, before the radar gun confirms it, that something unusual is happening. After the session, in the tunnel beneath the dugout, Smith was approached by a reporter he trusted. His exact words, as later relayed to the wider American baseball press. "I didn't expect that. Not right away. Not like that." He paused. Then, "He's back." When those words eventually reached Ohtani through a teammate who had read the report, people close to him said he went quiet for a long moment. Then his eyes filled. Not because of the velocity. Because of what "he's back" meant after everything he had quietly endured. Blake Snell won his second Cy Young Award with a devastating slider. He knows the pitch the way a sculptor knows clay, its angles, its depths, its limits. When Ohtani threw his slider in a late spring bullpen session that Snell happened to observe, Snell said nothing for several seconds afterward. Those nearby described him as wearing an expression that was somewhere between admiration and disbelief. Later, speaking to a reporter from a major American outlet, Snell was characteristically direct. "That slider, it's not right. It shouldn't move like that. He meant it as the highest possible compliment. The pitch broke so sharply, so late, with such deceptive arm speed, that Snell said even knowing it was coming did not help. The hand-eye gap between what the brain predicted and what the ball actually did was simply too large. He throws it like it's a fastball and then it just decides to be something else, Snell told the reporter. The American baseball media that picked up this quote treated it almost poetically. And rightly so. Because what Snell was describing wasn't just movement. He was describing the feeling of facing a pitcher whose arsenal exists outside the normal vocabulary of the sport. Yoshinobu Yamamoto came to the Dodgers as one of the most decorated pitchers in Japanese baseball history. He had watched Ohtani's career unfold from Japan, first with admiration, then with professional curiosity, then, when they became teammates, with something closer to reverence. But reverence is an emotion you can carry from a distance. What Yamamoto experienced during Ohtani's pitching return was something more immediate. Yamamoto, during an informal session observed by Dodgers training staff, caught several of Ohtani's warm-up pitches between innings of a simulated game. Afterward, he sat in the dugout in stillness for a moment longer than usual. When a bilingual staff member asked him quietly what he thought, Yamamoto's answer was short but weight-bearing. He is not recovering. He already recovered. We just didn't know. The implication was significant, that while the baseball world had spent 18 months watching Ohtani adjust to life as a hitter, tracking his home run totals and debating his MVP case, the pitcher inside him had simply continued to develop in the background. Quietly. Without announcement. The way Ohtani tends to do everything important. When Yamamoto's words were shared with the American media and eventually circulated back to Ohtani, those close to the Dodgers camp reported that Ohtani heard them, nodded slowly, and said nothing. His eyes, however, betrayed him. Tyler Glasnow is 6 feet, 8 inches of elite arm. His fastball sits in the upper 90s. He is not a pitcher who gets starstruck by velocity. He is velocity. Which is why what he told American baseball reporters about receiving Ohtani's pitches in practice carries unusual weight. The spin, Glasnow said. I've never felt a ball spin like that coming into a glove. You feel it in your palm differently. He was referring to Ohtani's signature fastball spin rate, among the highest ever measured in professional baseball, and the physical sensation it creates when the ball reaches the mitt. Not just the sound. Not just the velocity. The rotation itself, pressing into the leather in a way that Glasnow said he noticed immediately and couldn't stop thinking about. It makes you want to know how he does it, Glasnow added. And then you realize you probably can't. Some things are just his. When Ohtani was told about Glasnow's comments through a Japanese-language sports broadcast that had translated the American media reports, those present at the Dodgers facility said he laughed first. A short, quiet laugh. And then his expression shifted, and for a moment, people saw something raw and genuine cross his face. He had worked for that. For years. Through surgery, through rehabilitation, through an entire season of recalibration. And hearing a peer of Glasnow's caliber describe what he felt receiving those pitches, it landed somewhere deep. The Dodgers are a professional organization. Displays of emotion in front of teammates are not common. The culture is tight-lipped, competitive, disciplined. So when reports emerged through American baseball media, first tentatively, then with more detail, that Ohtani had been visibly moved to the point of tears upon hearing what his catchers and pitching peers had privately expressed, it stopped people. Not because Ohtani is unemotional. Those who know him understand that he feels things deeply. It's why his self-management is so extraordinary. The discipline is a container for an enormous amount of internal intensity. But this was different. This wasn't emotion about results. It wasn't about velocity readings or spin rates or what the radar gun said. It was about being seen, really seen, by people who understand the craft at its highest level, and having them confirm what he had believed, alone, through the longest rehabilitation of his career. He had not just returned. He had returned as himself. Fully. And the people best positioned to know that were the ones holding the gloves. Here's what's remarkable about the 4 testimonies above: none of them were given as press conferences. None were prepared statements. They were honest, spontaneous reactions shared in informal media contexts, a hallway conversation here, a brief post-practice comment there. That spontaneity is the whole point. Professionals at the highest level of the sport, speaking without a publicist in the room, without a narrative to manage, will tell you exactly what they actually think. And what Will Smith, Blake Snell, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and Tyler Glasnow actually thought, without coordination, without consultation, was the same. This is something exceptional. And it is back. For Ohtani, a man who has spent his entire career in the quiet, daily discipline of becoming more than the day before, who has eaten the meals, done the work, and refused to let injury rewrite the story he set out to tell, hearing those words meant everything. The numbers will come. The strikeouts, the innings, the velocity readings across 162 games, they will come, and they will be tracked obsessively by every corner of the baseball world. But 2025 is not a numbers story for Shohei Ohtani. It is a completion story. He came to the Dodgers with a plan that required patience, from himself, from his team, from the fans who watched him hit home runs and waited for the pitcher to return. That patience has now been answered. And it has been answered not quietly, but in the most revealing way possible. Through the unfiltered reactions of the men closest to the mound. When the best catchers in the sport go quiet after your warm-up session, that is not a small thing. When a fellow ace says your ball spins differently from everything he has ever felt, that is not flattery. When a teammate who watched you grow up in Japanese baseball says you didn't recover, you had already recovered, that is testimony. And when Shohei Ohtani hears these things and cannot hold back the tears, you understand something important. Beneath the stoicism, beneath the routine, beneath the extraordinary discipline, there is a person who wanted this more than anyone could see. He's back. And this time, he brought everything with him.